Harrison Blackwell walked out of that hotel wearing a smile that could fool anyone who didn't know better. Handsome, well-dressed, the perfect picture of a concerned husband searching for his troubled wife. He looked at Grace standing in the dusty street and said her name like he loved her. "Grace, thank God. Let me take you home." Grace did not move, did not speak, just looked at the man who had beaten her, starved her, left her for dead. Then she said one word. "Don't." And Harrison Blackwell's perfect smile cracked. This is the story of how it got there. A man makes two kinds of promises in his life, the ones he speaks out loud and the ones he carries in his chest until the day they bury him. I made Sarah both kinds. The sun was just starting to break over the ridgeline when Cole Thornton pushed himself up from the narrow bed in the barn. His back ached. 3 years of sleeping out here in the summer months had done nothing to make the straw any softer. He stood, rolled his shoulders, felt the familiar pop in his lower spine. 36 years old, and already his body was keeping a tally of every fence post he had ever driven, every horse he had ever broken, every winter he had ever worked through. He walked to the barn door and looked out across his land. Wyoming stretched before him in shades of gray and gold, endless and indifferent. The ranch was small by territory standards, 300 acres of grass and rock and stubborn hope. It had been enough for him and Sarah. It was more than enough now. Cole made his way to the house. The kitchen was dark. He lit the lamp and set about making coffee. 2 cups, always 2. He poured the first and set it on the table where Sarah used to sit. Then he walked to the door, opened it, and poured the coffee into the dirt. For Sarah. He did this every morning, had done it for 3 years, would do it until the day they put him in the ground next to her. He sat at the table with his own cup and stared at the empty chair. Sometimes he could still hear her voice. Not the words exactly, just the sound of it, the way it filled the spaces in this house that were too big now, too quiet. Emma would wake soon. 7 years old, and already she had more of her mother in her than Cole knew what to do with. The same blonde hair, the same way of looking at the world like it was a puzzle she was determined to solve, the same stubborn streak that had made Sarah impossible to argue with and impossible not to love. He heard her footsteps on the stairs, small and quick. She appeared in the doorway in her nightgown, clutching the stuffed rabbit she had named Ranger. One of its ears hung by a single thread. "Morning, Papa." "Morning, pup." She climbed into the chair across from him, the chair that used to be Sarah's. Cole felt the usual tightness in his chest but said nothing. "You sleep in the barn again?" "I did." "How come?" "Seemed like the right thing to do." Emma studied him with those brown eyes that saw too much. Then she nodded, satisfied with an answer she did not fully understand but chose to accept anyway. This was their routine. This was the life they had built in the absence of the one they had lost. Cole worked the ranch. Emma went to the schoolhouse when there was a teacher, stayed with Nora Parker when there was not. They ate dinner together. He read to her at night, doing the voices wrong on purpose because it made her laugh. And every morning he poured a cup of coffee into the dirt. He had promised Sarah he would show their daughter that the world was good. That was the promise he spoke out loud as she lay dying, fevered and fading in the bed upstairs. The other promise, the one he carried in his chest, was that he would never let Emma forget her. Never let her grow up thinking the world was cruel or empty or mean. So far, he had kept both promises. But some days it felt like all he was doing was holding on. Just barely. Just enough. After breakfast, he saddled the horses. Emma climbed up behind him and wrapped her small arms around his waist. They rode out toward the eastern pasture to check the fence line. The morning was cool and clear. The kind of morning that made a man forget for just a moment how hard the work was and how little the land gave back. They were halfway to the creek when Emma spoke. "Papa, stop." Cole pulled the horse to a halt. He felt Emma's grip tighten. "What is it?" "That lady, down there. She's broken." Cole followed her gaze. At first he saw nothing. Then he saw the shape in the mud near the creek bed. A woman, lying face down, not moving. His first thought was that she was dead. His second thought was that this was not his problem. He had a daughter to feed, a ranch to run, fences that needed mending and cattle that needed tending. Whoever this woman was, whatever had happened to her, it was not his business. But Emma was watching. 7 years old and already learning what kind of man her father was, what kind of world this was. He thought about the promise he had made to Sarah. Show her the world is good. And he thought about what Emma would learn if he rode past this woman without stopping. He swung down from the horse and lifted Emma to the ground. "Stay here. Don't move." "Yes, Papa." Her voice was small, scared. Cole walked toward the creek bed, his boots sinking into the soft earth. The woman had stopped crawling. One arm stretched forward, fingers dug into the dirt like she had been reaching for something that was not there. He knelt beside her and rolled her over. Slow, careful, his jaw locked. Her face was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. One eye swollen, completely shut, the other barely open, lips split, bruises so deep they had gone black. He had seen horses kicked in the head that looked better than this. "Ma'am?" He kept his voice low. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" The one good eye found him. And in that moment, Cole saw something that hit him harder than any fist ever had. She was not confused. She was not grateful. She was terrified. Terrified of him. She threw herself sideways, clawing at the ground. The sound that came out of her was not a scream. It was something worse. Something that belonged to a trapped animal, not a woman. "No, please. I'll go. I'll leave. Don't." Cole held both hands up, did not move, did not touch her. "I ain't him. Whoever did this, I ain't him." She kept shaking, her whole body locked up in the mud, trembling so hard her teeth clicked together. Behind him, Emma's voice, clear as Sunday morning. "It's okay, lady. My papa don't hurt nobody. He won't even kill the spiders in my room. He catches them in a cup and puts them outside." The woman's eyes shifted to the girl. Blonde hair under a too-big hat, gap-toothed smile, holding a stuffed rabbit with one ear hanging by a thread. The shaking slowed. Not much, but enough. Cole waited, patient as fence posts. He had handled wild horses, broken colts, cattle spooked by storms. This was the same. You did not corner a scared animal. You gave it space, time. Let it come to you. "Please." The woman's voice came out broken, crushed, like somebody had taken it and wrung it out like a rag. "Please don't take me back to him. I don't know who him is, but you ain't going back to nobody, not from here." She stared at him, searching, looking for the lie the way a person does when every truth they have ever been told turned out to be one. Then her body quit all at once, like a rope pulled too tight for too long that finally just snapped. She went limp in the mud. Cole understood. She had been running on pure fear, nothing else. And now that the fear had cracked, there was nothing left underneath to hold her up. He shrugged off his coat and wrapped it around her. When he lifted her, his stomach dropped. She weighed nothing. He could feel every rib, every bone in her shoulder. Whoever did this had not just beaten her. They had been starving her first. "Emma, get back on the horse." "Papa, is she going to die?" "No, baby, she ain't going to die." He said it like a fact. But inside his chest, he was not sure at all. Halfway home, the woman woke up screaming. It came out of nowhere. One second she was limp against his chest. The next, she was thrashing, clawing at his arms, kicking against the horse so hard the mare spooked sideways. Let me go, please, I'm sorry, I won't run again, please." Emma grabbed the saddle horn with both hands. Her knuckles went white. "Papa!" Cole locked one arm around the woman and steadied the horse with the other. His voice came out calm, the way it did when a calf was tangled in barbed wire and fighting itself to death. "You're not with him, you hear me? You're with Cole Thornton. You're on my horse. My daughter's right here. Nobody's hurting you. Nobody." The woman's eyes flew open, the one good eye, wild and lost, not seeing the Wyoming sky or the open grass or the little girl gripping the saddle in front of her. Then she focused, saw Emma's face. Emma had not screamed, had not cried, just held on and looked at her with those steady brown eyes. The woman stopped fighting. Her hands unclenched from Cole's arms. She looked down at the half-moon marks her fingernails had dug into his skin, and something crumbled in her expression. "I'm sorry. I thought—" "I know what you thought. It's all right. You're safe." She pressed her forehead against his shoulder and went quiet. Cole felt her tears soaking through his shirt. Warm. Silent. Emma reached back and put her small hand on the woman's knee. Did not say anything. Just left it there. They rode the rest of the way home without a word. Cole laid her on his bed and pulled the quilt up. She grabbed his sleeve before he could step back. "Don't leave me alone. He'll find me." "You're in my house. Nobody walks through my door without my say-so." He looked at Emma. "Sit with her, sweetheart." Emma climbed right up on the bed cross-legged and held out Ranger. "This is Ranger. He's fought bears and outlaws and one time a really mean chicken. You can hold him. He don't mind." The woman's swollen hand closed around the stuffed rabbit. She did not speak, but her grip on Cole's sleeve loosened, and he took that as permission to go. He rode hard for town, found Doc Patterson at his office above the general store. The old man was 63, missing 2 fingers on his left hand from a sawmill accident in his 20s, and had a voice like gravel being poured into a tin bucket. He had stitched up half the county and buried the other half. Nothing surprised him anymore. But when he came out of Cole's bedroom and closed the door behind him, he sat down at the kitchen table and did not speak for a full minute. Cole stood against the wall, arms crossed, waiting. "How bad?" Doc rubbed his 2-fingered hand across his face. 3 ribs broken, shoulder yanked out of the socket. Somebody shoved it back in, but they didn't mean not medical. Cuts on both arms. She was fighting back Cole. She fought hard. He paused. Bruises around her neck. Somebody choked her more than once from the layering. Cole's boot shifted against the floor. That was all. But his knuckles went white where his arms crossed. "There's more. She's starved. Not missed a few meals. Starved deliberately over weeks, maybe longer. This wasn't a man losing his temper. This was a man running a campaign." The kitchen went silent. Through the cracked bedroom door they could hear Emma telling the woman about the time Ranger fought a rattlesnake and won. "Is she going to make it?" Doc put his spectacles back on. Looked at Cole with the kind of eyes that had seen too much lying down and not enough standing up. "Her body will. The rest that's a longer road, and it ain't one you can walk for her." "I ain't trying to walk it for her, just trying to make sure she's got somewhere safe to walk it." Doc studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded, slow. "Sarah would have dragged this woman into the house herself, wouldn't have even slowed the horse down." Cole turned his face toward the window. "Don't. I'm just saying." "I know what you're saying." His voice went rough at the edges. "This ain't about my wife." "No," Doc agreed, standing up. He grabbed his bag. "But it ain't entirely separate either." He headed for the door, then stopped. "Cole, whoever did this, he ain't done. Men like that don't quit." They circle back. "You understand that?" "I understand it." "Fine. Then you understand that when he comes, and he will come, he won't come swinging fists. He'll come with papers and lawyers and a story that makes him look like the grieving husband searching for his poor, troubled wife." Doc's gravel voice went hard. "And some folks in this town will believe him, because he'll be wearing a better coat than you." Cole uncrossed his arms. "Let him wear what he wants. This is my land, my house, my door." Doc shook his head. "You're as stubborn as your daddy was." "My daddy lived to 87. "Yeah." Doc pulled his hat on, "and he got shot twice getting there." For 3 days the woman barely spoke. She drank the broth Cole brought to the doorway. He never entered the room without announcing himself first, never moved fast, never stood between her and the door. She flinched at the sound of his boots. She flinched at the sound of his voice. She flinched at the creak of the floorboards and the bang of the wind against the shutters. She did not flinch at Emma. The girl spent hours beside her, talking about chickens, about the barn cat named Sergeant who only had one eye, about the creek where you could find smooth stones shaped like hearts if you looked long enough, about her mama who was in heaven now but used to make biscuits so good the pastor came to dinner 3 times a week just to get some. On the third morning, Cole was pouring coffee when Emma came pattering out of the bedroom still in her nightgown. "Papa." "Yes, sweetheart." "Grace says she wants to talk to you, but she says if you're busy, it can wait. And she said to tell you she's sorry for being trouble." Cole set the coffee pot down. "She said her name's Grace. Grace Calloway. She told me last night. And Papa, she said Calloway is the name she was born with. She won't say the other one." Cole looked at his daughter, 7 years old, barefoot, tangled hair, calm as a woman 3 times her age. "Go feed the chickens and put shoes on." He went to the bedroom doorway, knocked on the frame even though the door was open. Grace was sitting up for the first time. The quilt was pulled around her shoulders, her face was still a ruin, but both eyes were open now, and what Cole saw in them had changed. 3 days ago those eyes held nothing but terror. Now the terror had company, something harder, something that looked like a decision being made. "You don't owe me anything, not an explanation, not a name, nothing." "I know," Grace said, "and that's why I'm going to tell you, because you didn't ask." She pulled the quilt tighter, drew a breath that hitched against her broken ribs. "I was a teacher in St. Louis. Had my own classroom, 22 students. I was good at it." Her hands twisted in the fabric. "Then I met Harrison Blackwell." Cole said nothing, just listened. "He's a banker, wealthy, respected, the kind of man who holds doors open and says all the right things where people can hear him. He courted me for 6 months. Flowers every Tuesday, poetry on the porch. Every woman in the boarding house told me I was the luckiest girl in Missouri." She stopped, pressed her hand against her ribs. "I married him. First time he hit me was our wedding night. Said I laughed too loud at the reception. Said a wife needed to understand her place." Her voice went flat, dead, like she was reading off a list. 2 years. 2 years of yes sir and no sir and I'm sorry and please don't. 2 years of high collars to hide the marks. 2 years of—" She stopped again, not from pain this time, from something else. She was looking past Cole, past the wall, past everything, at a place only she could see. Cole let the silence sit. "I tried to leave 3 times. First time he caught me at the train station, told everyone I'd had a nervous spell, dragged me home by my arm smiling the whole way." Her jaw tightened. "Second time I made it to my sister's house in Kansas City. He showed up the next morning, brought a sheriff and a doctor with papers already signed, papers that said I was mentally unfit." She swallowed hard. "My own sister." She stood there and watched them take me back, because he wore a good suit and spoke with authority, and she believed him over me. Cole's hand gripped the doorframe. He did not trust himself to speak. "Third time was 6 days ago. Stole money from his desk, bought a horse, rode west, didn't have a plan, didn't care, just rode." She looked at Cole directly. "He caught me on the second day, him and 3 hired men. They pulled me off the horse. Harrison watched while they did it. He stood there in his good coat and his clean boots and he watched." She held up her hands, fingernails torn, knuckles raw down to the meat. "After they left me, I crawled. 2 days, drank creek water, ate nothing. I crawled because I decided something. And it's the only thing I've decided for myself in 2 years." "What's that?" Cole's voice was barely there. "That if I die it'll be in a place I chose, not a place he picked out for me." The bedroom was quiet. Somewhere outside Emma was singing to the chickens. Off key, something about a frog. "He'll come," Grace said. "Harrison doesn't lose, he doesn't forget. He has enough money to find anyone anywhere, and when he comes he won't come with fists. He'll come with a judge's order and a sheriff's badge and a story so clean you could eat off it." She looked past Cole toward the front room where Emma's singing drifted through the open door. "You have a daughter, not from fear for herself, from fear for the little girl who had handed her a one-eared rabbit and told her about a mean chicken. I should leave tonight. I won't bring this to your door. I won't." "You ain't going nowhere?" Cole said it the way he said things that were true. No heat, no volume, just fact. "This is my land, that's my little girl, and you're in my house. Any man who rides up to my door meaning harm to anyone under this roof, I don't care if he's got a judge, a sheriff, and the governor of Missouri in his back pocket. He'll be dealing with me, and I ain't a man who deals gentle when it comes to my people." "I'm not your people," Grace said. "You are now." The words landed in the room and stayed there. Grace stared at him. Her battered lips trembled. Her eyes filled and she pressed her fist against her mouth. But the sob broke through anyway, raw and ugly and real, the kind of crying that lives in the body for years and only comes out when something cracks the wall open. Cole did not step toward her, did not reach for her. He stood in that doorway solid and still, and he gave her the only thing nobody had given her in 2 years, space to fall apart without being punished for it. When it passed, Grace wiped her face with the back of her hand, looked at him with red, swollen, ruined eyes that held something new. Not trust, not yet. Something before trust, something that comes first, the belief that trust might be possible again. "You're a fool, Cole Thornton." Her voice was wrecked, but there was the faintest edge in it, something that might have been humor in another life. Cole tipped his hat. Been told that before, generally by people who turned out to be right. Her mouth twitched, not a smile, not yet, but the ghost of one. The memory that smiling was a thing a person could do. What the hell did I just promise, Cole thought as he walked away from the bedroom. I just declared war on a man I've never met. A rich man, a connected man, a man who'll come with law on his side. And I did it because Emma was listening, because Sarah would have done the same, because it's the right thing. A man's word is his bond. I just gave mine. No turning back now. That evening, Nora Parker showed up at the door carrying a basket that smelled like heaven and wearing an expression that could have cut glass. 61 years old, built like a fence post wrapped in calico, she ran the only boarding house in Ridgeway with the iron hand of a woman who had buried 2 husbands and did not plan on wasting tears on a third. "Cole Thornton," she said, pushing past him before he could speak. "Doc Patterson came into my place last night looking like he'd swallowed a hornet. Wouldn't say why. So I asked Martha at the general store, and she said you rode into town 4 days ago like the devil was chasing you and bought enough bandages to wrap a mule." She set the basket on his table. "Now who's hurt, and why wasn't I told?" Cole opened his mouth. Nora held up one finger. "And don't you dare say it's none of my business. I changed your diapers, Cole Thornton. Everything in this county is my business." He told her. Not all of it. Just enough. A woman. Found her in the creek bed. Beaten bad. Husband did it. Nora's face did not change while he talked, but her hands did. They went still. Nora's hands were never still. She was always wiping a counter, folding a cloth, straightening something that did not need straightening. When her hands stopped moving, it meant something inside her had caught fire. "Where is she?" It was not a question. "Bedroom. Emma's with her." Nora picked up the basket and walked toward the bedroom door. She knocked twice. Soft. "Honey, my name's Nora Parker. I'm an old busybody who can't mind her own affairs, and I brought you biscuits and jam and a clean dress that might fit if we pin it. Can I come in?" Silence from inside the room. Then Emma's voice. "Come in, Miss Nora. Grace is awake. She's just scared of new people on account of a bad man hurt her." Cole closed his eyes. Nora went in. She was in there for 2 hours. When she came out, her eyes were red, but her jaw was set in a way Cole recognized. It was the same look she had worn when the bank tried to foreclose on the widow Crawford's house, and Nora had marched into the bank president's office and come out 40 minutes later with the deed in her hand. Nobody ever found out what she said in there. Nobody asked. That woman is staying right where she is until she's strong enough to decide for herself where she wants to be. I'll be back tomorrow with soup and proper undergarments, and if you breathe a word of this to anyone before she's ready, I will end you." "Yes, ma'am." Nora paused at the door. Cole, you did a good thing bringing her here. Didn't do anything anyone else wouldn't have done. Nora looked at him with eyes that had seen 61 years of people doing exactly nothing when something hard needed doing. We both know that isn't true. That night, for the first time, Grace came out of the bedroom. Cole was at the stove heating broth. Emma was on the floor playing with Sergeant, the one-eyed barn cat who had wandered inside and refused to leave. He heard the floorboards creak and turned to see Grace standing in the doorway, one hand braced against the frame, wearing the dress Nora had brought. It hung loose on her, pinned at the waist, but it was clean. Her hair was combed. Her face was still a wreck of bruises, but both eyes were open and clear. She looked at the kitchen like she was memorizing it. The stove, the table, the window, the little girl on the floor with the cat. "I'd like to sit at the table, if that's all right." Cole pulled out a chair. "Of course it is." She walked to it slowly, sat down, put both hands flat on the table like she was testing whether it was real. Emma looked up from the cat. "You look pretty. That dress has flowers on it." Grace looked down at the faded print. "I suppose it does." Cole set a bowl of broth in front of her, sat down across the table, not too close. Emma climbed into the chair between them, and Sergeant jumped into her lap. They ate in silence for a while. It was not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that happens when people are too tired for pretending and too honest for small talk. Then Grace said, "Your daughter told me about your wife." Cole's spoon stopped halfway to his mouth. "She said her name was Sarah, that she made the best biscuits in Wyoming, that she used to sing while she hung laundry, and that she died in the winter and it snowed the day of the funeral, and Emma thinks that was God crying." Cole set the spoon down. "Emma talks a lot. She talks the right amount. She talks like someone who is loved enough to believe the world is safe." Grace looked at Cole. "That's rare. That means you and your wife did something right." Something shifted in Cole's chest. A wall he had built 3 years ago developed a crack he did not know how to patch. She was better than me, at all of it. The house, Emma, being a person in the world. When she died, I just... He stopped, shook his head. "I ain't good at this part." "At what part?" "Talking about things that matter." Grace studied him across the table. "You carried me off the ground. You gave me your bed. You ride to the doorway and knock before you enter a room in your own house. You sleep in the barn in June so I can feel safe behind a locked door." She paused. "You talk fine, Cole. You just don't use words to do it." Cole looked at her, really looked, past the bruises and the swelling and the damage, and for half a second he saw the woman underneath all of it. The teacher, the reader, the person who had been buried alive under 2 years of fists and fear and was still somehow sitting at his table making observations that cut straight to the bone. He looked away first, cleared his throat, picked up his spoon. "Biscuits are in the basket if you want one. Nora made them. They ain't as good as Sarah's, but don't tell Nora I said that." Grace reached for the basket, and her hand was steady. The next morning, Cole rode into town to see Sheriff Wade Carson. Wade was 46, lean as a whip, and had a mustache that looked like it had been drawn on with a charcoal pencil. He had been sheriff of Ridgway for 11 years, which in Wyoming territory meant he had dealt with cattle thieves, claim jumpers, bar fights, one attempted bank robbery carried out by 2 brothers so drunk they tried to rob the feed store by mistake, and exactly 0 situations involving a wealthy banker from St. Louis hunting his wife across state lines. He listened to Cole without interrupting, leaned back in his chair, tugged his mustache the way he always did when he was thinking. "And she says this man Blackwell, he'll come. He'll come. She knows him. Says he doesn't quit." Wade nodded slowly. "The law is complicated here, Cole. You know that. A husband's got legal claim to his wife. She ain't property, Wade. I know that. You know that. But the law in Missouri might see it different. And if he shows up with papers—" Wade held up his hand before Cole could speak. "I ain't saying I'd hand her over. I'm saying we need to be smart about this. If he comes with legal weight, I need something to push back with." "Like what?" "Witnesses. People who've seen what he did to her. Doc Patterson's examination, a sworn statement from the woman herself if she's willing. Wade leaned forward. And it wouldn't hurt to have folks in this town who know her, who can stand up in front of a judge if it comes to that and say she's not crazy, she's not unfit, she's a woman who was beaten by her husband and had the guts to run. Cole sat with that for a moment. "There's another thing," Wade said. "If this Blackwell is what you say, he is rich, connected, used to getting what he wants, he might not come through official channels first. He might send men ahead, feel things out, see who she's with, see what he's dealing with." "I thought about that. I figured you had." Wade stood up, walked to the window. "I'll keep my ears open. Any strangers come through town asking about a woman, I'll know about it before they finish their first drink." He turned back to Cole. "But Cole, you can't shoot this man. You understand. No matter what he's done, you shoot a wealthy banker from St. Louis, you'll hang, and that little girl of yours will have no one." Cole's jaw worked. "I hear you. Do you? Because I've known you 20 years, and I've seen that look in your eyes exactly once before. And it was right before you broke Hank Morrison's arm in 3 places for kicking a dog. Hank Morrison deserved what he got. He did, but a dog ain't a federal case." Wade put his hand on Cole's shoulder. "Be smart, be patient, let me do my job, and if it goes sideways then we'll handle it together. But legal. You understand legal?" Cole put his hat on. "I understand, Wade." He did not promise. Wade noticed. Neither of them mentioned it. A week passed, then 2. Grace grew stronger every day, and the changes came in small things that only someone paying attention would notice. She started eating without being asked. She walked from the bedroom to the kitchen without holding the wall. She washed her own dishes. She brushed her own hair. She stood on the porch one morning and let the sun hit her face and did not flinch when a horse whinnied in the distance. Emma followed her everywhere. "Grace, look at this rock. Grace, do you know how to braid hair? Grace, can you read? Will you read to me? Papa reads to me, but he does the voices wrong. He makes the princess sound like a cowboy." "That's because all the princesses I know are cowboys," Cole said from the porch. Grace read to Emma every night. She had a voice for it once the damage healed enough for her to speak without wincing, clear and warm and changing with each character. Emma was asleep within minutes most nights, but Cole noticed that Grace kept reading for a while after, her voice dropping low, not for the child anymore but for herself, like she was remembering who she used to be. A few days later Grace came to Cole with a question that surprised him more than he expected. They were sitting at breakfast, Emma between them working on her letters with a piece of charcoal and scrap paper. The morning light came through the window, soft and yellow. Grace had been quiet all through the meal. Not the scared quiet of those first days, a different kind, the thinking kind. "Emma says the town doesn't have a teacher anymore." Cole looked up from his coffee. "That's true. Last one left in the spring, headed back east, said she couldn't take another winter out here." Grace set down her spoon, her hands folded in her lap. Cole recognized that gesture now. It was what she did when she was about to say something that mattered, when she was gathering herself. "I need to earn my way. I won't be kept. Not by anyone. Not ever again." "Nobody's keeping you, Grace." "I know." Her eyes met his, clear and steady. "That's why I'm still here." The weight of those words settled between them. Emma looked up from her letters, sensing something in the air that her 7-year-old mind could not quite name, but understood was important. Grace continued, "I'm a teacher, Cole. It's the only thing I ever was that was mine. Before Harrison, before all of it. I stood in front of a classroom, and I was good. Real good. And I'd like to be that again." Cole set his cup down carefully. He looked at this woman who 3 weeks ago could barely walk from the bedroom to the kitchen without holding the wall, who flinched at the sound of his boots on the floor, who woke screaming in the night from dreams she would not talk about, and now she was asking to stand in front of a room full of children, to teach, to be seen, to step back into the world as the person she used to be. It was the bravest thing he had ever heard. "Then be that again. I'll talk to Reverend Oakes." Grace's breath caught, like she had expected an argument and did not know what to do with agreement. What if people ask questions about where I came from? About— She gestured at her face. The bruises had faded to yellow and green, but they were still there, still visible, still a map of what had been done to her. Cole leaned back in his chair. "People will ask, and you'll tell them what you want to tell them, nothing more. This town's full of people who came from somewhere else running from something else. Half the ranchers out here changed their names before they crossed the Missouri. Nobody's going to hold your past against you." "You really believe that?" "I believe what I see, and what I see is a town that needs a teacher, and a teacher who needs a town." The meeting with Reverend Oakes happened 3 days later in Nora Parker's boarding house parlor. Cole stood by the door, hat in hands, while Grace sat across from the Reverend. She wore the dress Nora had given her, carefully mended and pressed. Her hair was pulled back. Her hands were steady. Reverend Samuel Oakes was a thin man with kind eyes and fingers permanently stained with ink from writing sermons that most folks in Ridgeway slept through on Sundays. But he was a learned man, had been to seminary back in Philadelphia, and within 10 minutes of talking with Grace, he forgot entirely that he was supposed to be conducting an interview. "Ma'am, are you telling me you've actually read Emerson?" Read him, taught him, and argued with him in the margins. The Reverend's eyes lit up like a child's on Christmas morning. "And Thoreau. Walden twice, once for school, once for myself. Whitman, Leaves of Grass made me believe in America again." The Reverend sat back in his chair and looked at Cole with something close to wonder. "Where on earth did you find this woman?" "Creek bed." Reverend Oakes blinked, opened his mouth, closed it, decided not to pursue that line of questioning. From the doorway came Nora's voice. "She starts Monday." The Reverend turned. Nora stood there with a dust cloth in her hand, though everyone in the room knew she had been listening to every word. "Now, Nora, I haven't quite decided." "Monday," Nora repeated. Her voice had that tone in it, the one that said the decision had already been made and the Reverend was just catching up. "And she'll need books, real books, not that pile of moth-eaten nonsense we've been torturing those children with for the past year." Reverend Oakes looked from Nora to Grace to Cole. Then he smiled, a real smile, the kind that came from genuine happiness rather than professional obligation. "Monday it is." Grace started teaching on a Monday morning in late July. Cole rode with her and Emma to the schoolhouse. It was a small building, one-room whitewashed walls that had gone gray over the years. 9 children sat on the rough wooden benches, ages 6 through 14, some of them clean, some of them not, all of them watching Grace with the wary eyes of children who had learned that adults often promise things they did not deliver. Cole stayed long enough to see Grace walk to the front of the room, to see her pick up the piece of chalk, to see her turn to face those 9 children with a smile that was real and warm and completely without fear. Emma sat in the front row, beaming like she had personally arranged the whole thing. "Good morning," Grace said. Her voice carried clear to the back of the room. "My name is Miss Calloway, and we're going to learn some things together." Cole left then. He had fences to mend and cattle to check. But as he rode away, he could hear Grace's voice through the open window. Teaching. Really teaching. Not just reciting facts, but making those children think, making them question, making them want to know more. By the end of the first week, something remarkable had happened. Children who had spent the previous spring throwing rocks at each other during recess were now arguing during lunch about whether George Washington was braver than Daniel Boone. Martha Greer's boy, who everyone said was slow, was reading full sentences. The oldest girl, shy and quiet, had started writing poetry. The parents noticed. They talked. Most of the talk was good. Parents coming to Cole in town or at church thanking him for bringing Miss Calloway to Ridgeway, saying their children were excited about school for the first time in years, saying she was the best teacher they had ever had. But not all the talk was good. On Sunday after church, Cole was checking the cinch on his saddle when he heard Helen Campbell's voice. She was standing with a group of women near the church steps. Her voice was pitched just loud enough to be heard, just quiet enough to pretend it was private. "I'm just asking questions. Nobody knows where she came from. Nobody knows her family. She shows up half dead on Cole Thornton's ranch, and now she's teaching our children. What if that husband of hers shows up? What if there's trouble? We've got children to think about." Cole's hands stilled on the leather strap. His jaw tightened. He wanted to walk over there, wanted to tell Helen Campbell exactly what he thought of her questions. But before he could move, Nora Parker appeared. Nora walked right up to Helen. Close enough that Helen took a step back. "What don't sit right?" Nora said, her voice quiet, but carrying the weight of 61 years of not suffering fools, "is that mouth of yours." "I'm serious, Nora." What if nothing?" Nora stepped closer. "That woman crawled through the dirt for 2 days after 3 men beat her near to death on her husband's orders. She crawled because she decided she'd rather die in a ditch than spend one more day being owned by a man with clean hands and a black heart. And now she's standing in front of your children teaching them to read, which is more than you've ever done for this town's education." Helen's face went red. "So I suggest," Nora continued, "you take your questions and your concerns and your just askings and you fold them up real small and you put them somewhere I don't have to listen to them. Are we clear?" Helen's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. She turned and walked away, her back stiff, her face burning. But Cole knew the damage was done. The seed had been planted, and seeds, as Nora understood better than most, had a way of growing in the dark. 10 days after Grace started teaching, a man rode into Ridgeway on a gray horse. He was young, clean-shaven, wore a bowler hat and a city coat that had no business being in Wyoming. He tied his horse at the saloon, ordered a whiskey, and started asking questions. Casual questions. The kind a man asks when he wants to seem like he's making conversation and not conducting a search. Nice town. Quiet. The kind of place a person could disappear if they wanted to. The bartender wiped a glass and said nothing. "I'm looking for a woman. My employer's wife. She's not well. Took off a few weeks back during one of her episodes. Family's worried sick." He pulled a photograph from his vest pocket, slid it across the bar. The bartender looked at the photograph, looked at the man, kept wiping. "Can't say I've seen her." The man smiled, left a $20 gold piece on the bar. "If you do see her, my employer would be grateful, very grateful. There'd be a reward for anyone who helps bring her home safe." He finished his whiskey, walked out, rode east. The bartender picked up the gold piece, looked at it. Then he walked 3 doors down to the sheriff's office and set it on Wade's desk. Wade looked at the coin, then at the bartender. Young fella, city coat, bowler hat, had a photograph of a woman, asking if anyone had seen her, said she was his employer's wife, said she wasn't well, said there'd be a reward. "What did you tell him?" "Told him I hadn't seen her. That the truth." The bartender looked at Wade for a long moment. "I've been pouring drinks in this town for 9 years, Wade. I've seen a lot of men come in looking for women. Some of them are husbands looking for wives. Some of them are trouble looking for a target. That fellow with the bowler hat, he wasn't worried about no woman's well-being. He was scouting." Wade nodded, put the coin in his desk drawer, stood up, put his hat on. "I need to talk to Cole Thornton." He rode out to the ranch that afternoon, found Cole splitting wood behind the barn, told him about the man with the bowler hat. Cole buried the axe in the stump and did not pull it out. "How long ago?" 3 hours, rode east, he's reporting back." Cole stared at the axe in the stump. His hands hung at his sides. "Still. How long you figure we got?" "Could be days, could be a week. Depends on how far east this Blackwell is. Depends on how fast he moves." Wade shifted in his saddle. "I sent a wire to the U.S. Marshal's office in Cheyenne. Told them we might have a situation. Asked if there's any federal paper on Blackwell. Haven't heard back yet. And if there ain't, then we do this the hard way." Wade looked down at his friend. "Legal, Cole. I meant what I said." Cole pulled the axe from the stump, swung it into the next log. The crack echoed off the barn wall. "Go tell Grace. She deserves to know." "I know she does." "That's what I'm afraid of." Cole found Grace on the porch that evening. Emma was inside asleep. The house was quiet. Grace was sitting in the chair Cole had built. The second chair, the one he had made without saying why. Just set it on the porch one morning like it had always been there. She looked at his face and knew. He found me. Not a question. Cole sat down on the porch step. "Not yet, but someone came to town asking about you. Young man, city clothes. Had your photograph." Grace's hands gripped the arms of the chair. Her knuckles went white, but her voice stayed level. "That's how Harrison works. He sends someone first. To look. To listen. To find out who's protecting me and how hard it'll be to take me back. Wade knows. He's on it. Sent a wire to the marshals. The marshals won't matter. Harrison will come with papers, Cole. Legal papers. A judge's order. A doctor's signature. He'll stand in front of your sheriff and your town, and he'll say I'm his wife, and I'm mentally unfit, and he has every legal right to take me home. And your sheriff will have to choose between the law and what's right. And those aren't always the same thing." Cole looked at her. "Wade Carson's a good man. I don't doubt it. But good men lose to rich men every day in this country. You know that." The quiet stretched between them. Somewhere out past the fence line, a coyote called, and another answered. "I should run. Tonight. Take a horse. Head north. If I'm gone when he arrives, he'll have no reason to." "No." "Cole?" "No." He turned to face her. His voice was low and hard and left no room. "You ran 3 times. 3 times he caught you. Running's not the answer. Standing is. Easy for you to say. You're not the one he wants." "You're right. I ain't. But I'm the one who's here and I ain't moving. Neither are you." Grace's eyes filled. She blinked it back. Refused it. "I won't let him hurt your daughter." "Nobody's dying, and nobody's running. We're going to stand right here, on this porch, on this land. And when Harrison Blackwell rides up to my gate, he's going to find out what happens when a man with money meets a woman with a town behind her. A town behind me. Cole, I've been here a month. These people don't owe me anything. You taught Martha Greer's boy to read in 3 weeks. Nora Parker would walk through fire for you, and she's known you less time than that. Doc Patterson checks on you every Tuesday and won't take a dime for it. Reverend Oakes told me last Sunday that you're the best thing that's happened to this town since the railroad came through." He leaned forward. "You think you're alone in this, Grace, you ain't. You stopped being alone the day my daughter handed you a stuffed rabbit and decided you were family." A tear broke loose, ran down Grace's cheek. She did not wipe it away. "I'm scared. Not of the hitting. I've survived the hitting. I'm scared he'll take me back and I'll disappear again. That the woman sitting on this porch right now, the one who teaches children and reads books and drinks coffee in the morning and almost feels like a human being again, I'm scared she'll go away. And the other one will come back. The quiet one. The one who says yes, sir, and flinches at shadows and doesn't remember what her own voice sounds like." Cole reached out, slow, careful. He put his hand on the arm of her chair. Not on her. Near her. Close enough to touch if she wanted, far enough to leave if she did not. "That woman on this porch, she ain't going anywhere. I guarantee it." Grace looked at his hand, looked at his face, and after a long, still moment, she moved her hand from the chair arm and set it on top of his. They sat like that while the dark came down and the coyotes called across the valley. And if you had ridden past Cole Thornton's ranch that night, you would have seen nothing but a man and a woman sitting together in silence. And you would have thought it was the most ordinary thing in the world. It was not. It was the bravest thing either of them had ever done. The telegram arrived on a Tuesday morning in mid-August. Sheriff Wade Carson rode out to the ranch himself to deliver it. Cole was in the corral working with a young colt when he saw the dust cloud. He knew before Wade even dismounted that it was bad news. The sheriff would not have ridden all the way out here for anything good. Wade handed him the folded paper without a word. Cole opened it, read it once, then again. The words did not change. Departing St. Louis Monday, stop arriving. Ridgeway, end of week. Stop bringing legal authority and sufficient force to recover my property. Stop H. Blackwell. Cole's hand tightened on the paper. The edges crumpled. His jaw worked, but he said nothing for a long moment. My property. His voice was flat, hard. Not even my wife. Property. He's not hiding what he thinks anymore, Wade said. How long we got? He sent this yesterday. If he left St. Louis Monday, he's already on the rails. Could be here Friday, maybe Saturday, depending on the connections. Cole looked east, like he could see across the miles to wherever Harrison Blackwell was at this exact moment, like he could measure the distance between them and calculate how much time was left. That's 3 days, maybe 4. I sent another wire to Cheyenne, pushed them on that federal angle, asked if they had anything on Blackwell beyond the initial inquiry. And? Haven't heard back yet, but even if they come through Cole, even if there's federal interest, it takes time. Warrants, jurisdiction, legal processes. We might not have that time. Cole handed the telegram back. What's our play then? Wade folded the telegram carefully, put it in his pocket. We do what we can with what we have. Grace's statement, Doc's medical report, the testimony of the townspeople. We make our case that she's not unfit, that she's not a danger to herself, that she's a productive member of this community. He paused. And we hope that when Blackwell shows up with his court order and his lawyers and his money, we hope that justice and law turn out to be the same thing, just this once. And if they don't, Wade met his eyes, then we cross that bridge when we get there. But legal Cole, you gave me your word you'd let me try it legal first. I gave you my word I'd give you time. I didn't promise what happens after that time runs out. The two men stood in the dust of the corral, friends for 20 years, both knowing that the next few days would test everything they believed about law and justice and what a man was willing to do when the two did not align. I need to tell Grace, Cole said. I know you do. She's going to want to run. I expect she will. I ain't letting her. Wade put his hand on Cole's shoulder. I know that too. That evening, Cole waited until Emma was asleep before he went to find Grace. She was on the porch in her chair, the second chair, the one he had built for her without saying why. She was reading by lamplight, some book the Reverend had lent her. She looked up when she heard his boots on the boards, took one look at his face and set the book down. He's coming. Not a question. Cole sat down on the porch step, pulled the telegram from his pocket, handed it to her. Grace read it by the lamplight. Her hands did not shake, but when she was done she folded it very carefully, very precisely, and handed it back. Like if she controlled that one small action, she could control everything else that was spinning away from her. 3 days, she said. Maybe 4. Wade's working on the federal angle, trying to get something official before Blackwell arrives. It won't work. Won't. Her voice was steady, factual. Harrison will come with papers signed by judges who owe him favors, with doctors who've never met me but will swear I'm unfit, with lawyers who've done this 100 times before. She looked out at the dark. Your sheriff will have to choose between the law and what's right. And the law says I belong to Harrison, that I'm his wife, his property, and no matter how good a man your sheriff is, the law is the law. Cole turned to look at her. Wade Carson's been sheriff here 11 years. He's a good man, an honest man. I don't doubt it. Grace's grip tightened on the arms of her chair. But good men lose to rich men every day in this country. You know that as well as I do. The quiet stretched between them. In the distance a coyote called. Another answered. I should leave tonight. Grace's voice was barely above a whisper. Take a horse. Head north. Montana maybe. Or Canada. If I'm not here when he arrives. No. The word came out harder than Cole intended. He took a breath, softened his voice but not his meaning. You ran 3 times. 3 times he caught you. Running's not the answer, Grace. Standing is. That's easy for you to say. You're not the one he wants. You're right, I'm not. But I'm the one who's here, and I ain't moving. He turned to face her fully. Neither are you. Grace stood up, started pacing. The lamplight caught the planes of her face. The bruises were almost gone now, just shadows in certain light. But Cole could still see them, would always be able to see them. Cole, you don't understand what you're asking, what you're risking. If I stay, if Harrison comes here, if this turns into a fight, Emma could get hurt. Your reputation could be destroyed. You could lose everything. I understand fine. Do you... She stopped pacing, faced him. Because I've seen what Harrison does to people who stand in his way. I've seen him ruin men, break them. He has money and power and connections, and he uses all of it without mercy. Cole stood, walked to her, stopped close enough that she had to tilt her head back to look at him. That man's been making you small for 2 years, making you think you're powerless, that you're alone, that nobody would stand up for you because he's too rich, too connected, too powerful. He put his hand on the porch railing next to her, not touching her, but close. But you're not alone anymore. You taught Martha Greer's boy to read in 3 weeks. Nora Parker would walk through fire for you. Doc Patterson checks on you every Tuesday and won't take a dime. Reverend Oakes told me last Sunday you're the best thing that's happened to this town since the railroad came through. Grace's eyes were bright, wet. That doesn't stop a court order, Cole. Maybe not. But it means when Harrison Blackwell rides into Ridgeway expecting to collect his property, he's going to find out that property can have friends. And those friends might have something to say about him taking her anywhere. You could hang for interfering. I could, but I won't. Because we're going to do this right, legal, the way Wade wants to do it. And if legal doesn't work... Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But Grace, I gave you my word. You're under my protection. You're in my house. And I don't give up what's mine. I'm not yours, Cole. He looked at her, really looked at her, in the lamplight, on this porch, in this moment. Yes, you are. Same way Emma's mine. Same way this land is mine. Same way... He stopped, swallowed. Same way I'm yours. The words hung in the air between them. Grace's breath caught. Her hand came up slowly, hesitantly, and touched his chest, just above his heart. She could feel it beating, fast, hard. Cole, I know what I'm saying, and I know the timing's wrong, and I know you've got every reason not to trust another man as long as you live. But Grace, these past weeks, watching you come back to yourself, watching you teach those kids, watching you sit in that chair and read by lamplight like you've got every right to be here. He put his hand over hers on his chest. You do have every right. And I want you to stay. Not because I'm protecting you, but because I can't imagine this porch without you in it anymore. Grace looked up at him, tears running down her face now, not trying to hide them. He's coming in 3 days. I know. This might be the worst timing in the history of terrible timing. I know that too. I'm terrified. So am I. She laughed. It came out half sob, half something that might have been joy in a different context. You're supposed to be the brave one. Who says I'm brave? I'm scared out of my mind. Scared of failing you. Scared of failing Emma. Scared of what's coming. He tightened his hand over hers. But I'm more scared of not standing here with you when it does. Grace rose up on her toes, slowly, giving him time to pull away. He did not. She kissed him, gentle, careful, like she was testing whether this was real or whether it would shatter if she pressed too hard. Cole kissed her back. His free hand came up to cup her face, rough calluses against her cheek. He was careful, so careful, aware of every inch of her, every place that might still hurt, every reason she might pull away. She did not pull away. When they finally broke apart, they stood with their foreheads touching, both breathing hard, both shaking slightly. Whatever happens Friday, Grace whispered. I know. They did not need more words than that. The next morning, Nora Parker showed up at Cole's door before breakfast. She had that look on her face, the one that meant she had made a decision and everyone else was going to fall in line whether they liked it or not. "We're having a church social Thursday evening," she announced. Cole blinked, still half asleep, still thinking about the feel of Grace's lips on his from the night before. What? A church social, Thursday evening, the whole town, and Grace is going to speak. Nora. Don't Nora me. You listen. That man is coming with lawyers and court orders and a story about his poor sick wife who ran away during one of her fits. And if the people of this town don't know Grace's side before he gets here, some of them are going to believe him. Because he's going to be convincing. Men like that always are. She pushed past him into the kitchen, started making coffee like she owned the place. So we get ahead of it. Grace tells her story, her words, her truth, in front of everyone, before he can poison the well. You're asking her to stand up in front of the whole town and talk about the worst thing that ever happened to her. I'm asking her to fight back. Nora poured the coffee, handed Cole a cup. It's the hardest thing in the world, standing up in front of people who matter and telling the truth, but it's also the only thing that works. Cole thought about it, about Grace in front of that church, about her having to relive every moment, every blow, every degradation. She won't want to. I know, but ask her anyway. When Cole brought it to Grace that evening, she went very still. They were on the porch again. Emma was inside with Sergeant the cat and her 5 new kittens, all born with one eye just like their mother. Grace had been reading. She set the book down carefully. Nora wants me to tell my story, in church, in front of everyone. She thinks if people know the truth before Harrison gets here, they'll be less likely to believe whatever story he tells. Grace stared out at the dark. She's probably right. You don't have to do it. Yes, I do. She looked at him. If I don't, if I let Harrison get here first and control the narrative, then I'm still letting him control me, still letting him make me small, still hiding. Her hands twisted in her lap. But Cole, when I tell this story, when I say these things out loud in front of people I see every day, people who know me as Miss Calloway, the teacher, they're going to look at me different. Some of them are going to pity me. Some are going to blame me. And some are going to think I'm lying because that's what people do when the truth is ugly enough. And some of them are going to stand up for you, stand with you. Maybe. Grace. He took her hand. I've been watching this town for the past 3 weeks. I've seen how they look at you, how the kids light up when you walk in that schoolhouse, how the parents talk about you. You're not just the teacher anymore. You're part of this place. For now, but when they know, some of them will surprise you. People are better than we give them credit for. Sometimes. Thursday evening came like a reckoning. The church was full, every seat taken, people standing against the walls. Nora had spread the word carefully, not gossiping, just letting the right people know that something important was going to happen, that they needed to be there. Cole sat in the back. His choice. Grace needed to do this on her own, needed to stand in front of these people without looking to him for strength. This was her moment, her voice, her truth. Emma sat in the front row with Ranger the rabbit in her lap, looking up at Grace with absolute faith. Reverend Oakes gave a short introduction, said that Grace had asked to speak to the congregation, that they should listen with open hearts and open minds. Then he stepped aside. Grace stood, walked to the front, turned to face the town of Ridgeway. For one terrible second Cole thought she was going to run. Her face went white. Her hands gripped the edge of the pulpit. Her eyes went to the door at the back of the church where Cole stood. He nodded, just once. You can do this. Then Emma's voice, clear as a bell. You can do it, Grace. I believe in you. Grace closed her eyes, took a breath, opened them. My name is Grace Calloway. Her voice shook, but it carried. Some of you know me as the teacher at the schoolhouse. Some of you know me as the woman Cole Thornton found in the creek bed 6 weeks ago. I'm here to tell you how I got there, and I'm going to ask you to believe me, not because I can prove everything I'm going to say, but because I'm standing here telling you the truth, and that's the hardest thing I've ever done. She told them everything about being a teacher in St. Louis, 22 students, a good life, a promising future, about meeting Harrison Blackwell, the courtship, the flowers every Tuesday, the poetry, the way every woman in her boarding house told her she was the luckiest girl in Missouri, about the wedding night, about the first time he hit her and the look in his eyes when he did it, like he had been waiting for permission, like the wedding ring was that permission, about 2 years of walking on eggshells, of yes sir and no sir and I'm sorry and please don't, about high collars to cover bruises, about the way he starved her, not all at once, slowly, deliberately, taking control of every bite of food that went into her mouth, about the 3 times she tried to leave, the train station, her sister's house, the final escape, about Harrison standing in his good coat watching while 3 men beat her, about crawling for 2 days, about deciding that if she was going to die it would be in a place she chose. Her voice cracked twice, but she did not stop. She told it plain and straight, the way you tell something when you have carried it so long that the weight of it has worn the edges smooth. When she finished, the church was silent. Cole looked at the faces around him. He saw tears. He saw anger. He saw shock. He saw Helen Campbell in the 3rd row with her hand over her mouth and her eyes wide and wet. Then Nora Parker stood up. "I believe her." Her voice rang out, loud, clear, daring anyone to disagree. Doc Patterson stood up next. "I treated her injuries. 3 broken ribs, dislocated shoulder, strangulation marks, defensive wounds, malnutrition. Everything she's described is consistent with what I found, and I'll swear to it in front of any judge who asks." Sheriff Wade Carson stood. "I've received a federal telegram confirming that Harrison Blackwell is under investigation in Missouri. Fraud, embezzlement, and a suspicious death in his household. A woman named Ruth Adler found at the bottom of a staircase. Coroner ruled it accidental. Federal prosecutor doesn't agree." A murmur went through the church. People looked at each other, shifted in their seats. Then Frank Campbell stood, big man from the back row, ran the general store with his wife. Quiet, never said much about anything. If that man comes to this town, he'll have to go through more than just Cole Thornton. Old Pete Dawson, who owned the feed store and had not made a speech since Lincoln was president. "I ain't much for fighting, but I taught my daughters that a man who hits a woman ain't a man at all, and I meant it." One by one people stood, not all of them. Helen Campbell sat in her pew and said nothing. 2 or 3 others kept their eyes on the floor. But enough, more than enough. Grace stood at the pulpit and watched it happen. Watched these people, these near strangers, stand up for her. And something broke open in her chest that had been locked shut for 2 years. Not trust exactly. Something bigger. The realization that she had walked into a room full of people and told them the worst thing that had ever happened to her, and they had not turned away. They had stood up. Cole caught her eye from the back of the church. He did not smile, did not nod, just looked at her the way he had looked at her since the first day. Steady, present, the same. She almost broke right there, almost. Instead, she straightened her spine and said, "Thank you." Then she walked back to her seat and sat down. Emma climbed into her lap and whispered, "I told you." That night Cole and Grace sat on the porch long after Emma had gone to bed. Neither of them spoke for a long time, just sat in their chairs listening to the night sounds, the crickets, the distant coyotes, the wind moving through the grass. Finally, Grace said, "Tomorrow he comes." "Tomorrow he comes," Cole agreed. "Are we ready?" "No." She laughed, quiet and without humor. "At least you're honest. Ain't much point in being anything else now." Grace reached over and took his hand, laced her fingers through his. "Cole, if it goes wrong tomorrow, if the law says I have to go back with him, promise me you won't do anything stupid. Promise me you'll think of Emma first." "I always think of Emma first." "Then promise me you won't risk her losing her father. Not for me." Cole turned to look at her, really look at her. This woman who had crawled through mud with broken ribs rather than give up, who had stood in front of a church and told the truth even though it nearly broke her, who was sitting here now asking him to let her go if it came to that. I can't promise that. Cole, I can't. Because I meant what I said. You're mine now, same way Emma's mine, and I don't give up what's mine. Tears ran down her face. You're going to get yourself killed. Maybe. But I'll die standing for something that matters, and Emma will remember that. She'll remember that her father stood up when it counted. Grace pulled her hand away, stood up, started to pace. This is insane. This is the worst plan in the history of plans. We're going up against a man with unlimited resources, and we have what a small-town sheriff and some medical reports and the goodwill of a few people who might change their minds the second things get difficult. That's about the size of it. We're going to lose. Maybe. We're definitely going to lose. Maybe. Cole said again. He stood, walked to her, put his hands on her shoulders. Or maybe we're not. Maybe the law and justice turn out to be the same thing just this once. Maybe the federal prosecutor comes through. Maybe Harrison Blackwell trips up and shows his true face. Maybe 100 things we can't predict happen and we come out the other side of this. And if they don't, then at least we'll go down swinging. Grace looked up at him. Her face was wet. Her eyes were bright. And despite everything, despite the fear and the uncertainty and the very real possibility that tomorrow would end badly, she smiled. You're insane. Probably. Sarah must have been a saint to put up with you. She was. And she'd be standing right here with us if she could. Grace put her arms around his neck, pulled him down, kissed him like it might be the last chance she got. When they broke apart, she whispered, I love you, Cole Thornton. And that might be the stupidest thing I've ever said given our current situation. But there it is. Cole's throat tightened. His eyes burned. I love you too, Grace Calloway. And you're right. Timing's terrible. But I'm glad I said it. They stood there on the porch holding each other while the night deepened around them, both knowing that tomorrow would bring Harrison Blackwell and all the trouble that came with him, both knowing that the next 24 hours would determine everything. But for now, for this moment, they had each other. They had Emma sleeping safe inside. They had a town that had stood up in a church and declared itself on their side. It would have to be enough, because tomorrow was almost here, and there was no stopping it now. When Friday morning came, it came with a knock on the door before sunrise. Cole was already awake, had been awake most of the night. He opened the door to find Sheriff Wade Carson on his porch. The man's face said everything. He came early. Not a question. Rode in an hour ago. 5 men. Took 2 rooms at the hotel. He's already asking for me. Cole felt his gut tighten. 5 men. That meant Harrison had brought muscle. Real muscle. I'll be there in an hour. Cole? Wade put his hand on the doorframe. This is it. This is where we find out if legal holds up or if it all falls apart. I need you to promise me right here, right now, that you'll let me handle this my way first. Cole looked at his friend. 20 years of friendship, 20 years of trust. I'll give you your shot, Wade, but if it goes wrong, if he tries to take her, then we'll cross that bridge when we get there, together. Cole nodded. Wade left. Grace appeared in the doorway of the bedroom. She had heard everything. He's here. Yeah. Early. Yeah. She walked to him, took his hand. Let's go face the devil then. Emma came out rubbing her eyes. She looked from Cole to Grace and back again. 7 years old, and already she understood that something important was happening. Is today the day the bad man comes? Cole knelt down. Yeah, baby. It's today. Are you scared? A little. Me too. Emma looked at Grace. But we're all together, so it'll be okay. Grace knelt down beside Cole, took Emma's face in her hands. It will be okay. No matter what happens today, it will be okay. Do you believe me? Emma nodded. Good. Now I need you to go stay with Miss Nora. Can you do that for me? I want to stay with you and Papa. I know, but this is grown-up business, and I need to know you're somewhere safe." Emma looked like she wanted to argue, but she was her mother's daughter, and she understood when the time for arguing was past. "You'll come get me when it's over." "The second it's over," Grace promised. Cole walked Emma up to Nora's. The old woman was waiting on her porch like she had known they were coming. She took Emma's hand without a word. "You keep that girl safe," Cole said, "with my life." Nora looked at him hard. "You keep yourself safe too, Cole Thornton. This town needs you. Emma needs you. I'll do my best. Your best better be good enough." Cole and Grace rode into town together as the sun was coming up. The main street was already awake. People on porches, in doorways. Everyone knew. Somehow everyone knew. The hotel sat at the end of the street, 2 stories, whitewashed. A hitching post out front where 5 horses stood. Expensive horses, the kind that cost more than most men in Ridgeway made in a year. Sheriff Wade was on the boardwalk in front of his office. His badge was polished. His gun was on his hip. His face looked like it had been carved from the same rock as the mountains. He nodded to Cole and Grace. "He'll be out soon. Sent word he wants to see me at 8 o'clock. Got 10 minutes. Cole helped Grace down from her horse. She stood beside him, straight, still. Her face was pale, but her jaw was set. The hotel door opened. Harrison Blackwell walked out. Cole had imagined this moment 100 times in the past weeks, had pictured the man who had done this to Grace, had built up an image in his mind of some monster, some obvious villain. What he saw instead was worse. Harrison Blackwell was handsome. That was the first thing anyone would notice. Tall, clean-jawed, dark hair combed back with oil. A face that belonged on a campaign poster or a society page. He wore a suit that probably cost what Cole made in 6 months. And he walked with the easy confidence of a man who had never been told no by anyone who mattered. Behind him came a thin man in spectacles carrying a leather case. The lawyer. Then the young man with the bowler hat. Then 2 more men. Big. Armed. The kind of men you hired when you expected trouble and wanted to be ready for it. Harrison's eyes swept the street, took in the people watching. The sheriff. Cole. Then his eyes found Grace, and he smiled. It was the worst smile Cole had ever seen. Warm. Concerned. Loving. Perfect. The smile of a devoted husband finding his troubled wife after weeks of worry. If you did not know, if you had not seen the bruises, if you had not heard the story, you would have believed that smile. You would have believed everything about this man. "Grace," Harrison's voice carried across the street, rich, cultured, concerned. "Thank God. I've been so worried. When you left, when you disappeared, I didn't know if you were alive or dead. I haven't slept. I've barely eaten. Darling, please, let me take you home. We'll get you the help you need." Cole felt Grace's hand tighten on his arm, felt her whole body go rigid. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for, the moment when Harrison Blackwell would try to take back what he thought belonged to him, and Cole would have to decide just how far he was willing to go to stop him. Grace did not move, did not speak, just stood there on the dusty street of Ridgeway, looking at the man who had beaten her, starved her, left her for dead. The man who was now standing 20 feet away, wearing a concerned smile and speaking to her like a loving husband who had been searching for his poor, confused wife. Cole felt her trembling beside him, not from fear, from rage. Then she spoke. Her voice cut through the street like a knife through silk. "Don't." Harrison's smile flickered, just for a second, just long enough for Cole to see the crack in the mask. "Don't you dare stand there and perform for these people." Harrison's expression shifted, tried to reshape itself into hurt confusion, the wounded husband confronted by his ill wife's delusions. "Grace, darling, you're not well. You know that. Dr. Marsh diagnosed you before you left. The papers are all in order. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to bring you home where you can get the treatment you need." "Dr. Marsh has never examined me," Grace said. Her voice was steady now, strong. "Dr. Marsh signed a paper your money put in front of him, the same way Judge Harker signed your court order. the same way every official in St. Louis signs whatever you tell them to sign because you own them." She took a step forward, away from Cole, standing on her own. "I am not sick, Harrison. I was never sick. I was beaten by you in our home for 2 years." People were gathering now, coming out of shops and houses, lining the boardwalks, watching. The whole town was watching. Harrison's composure held, but his eyes changed. The warmth drained out of them like water through a crack. What was underneath was flat and hard and cold. "My wife has been through a terrible ordeal," he said, "not to Grace anymore, to the crowd, to the town. She was attacked on the road by bandits. She's confused, traumatized. The doctor in St. Louis warned me this might happen, that she might fabricate stories, assign blame to the people closest to her. It's a symptom of her condition." He shook his head with practiced sorrow. "All I want is to bring her home and get her the treatment she needs." Cole watched the crowd. Some faces were hard, skeptical. People who had heard Grace's story in the church, but others looked uncertain, looking at this well-dressed, well-spoken, tearful husband and wondering. Helen Campbell's voice came from the boardwalk. "She says you beat her." "You?" Harrison turned to Helen, his face crumpled with convincing pain. "Ma'am, I have never raised a hand to my wife. I love her more than my own life. The suggestion that I would—" He pressed his hand to his chest. "I can't even say the words. It destroys me." Silence settled over the street. Then Doc Patterson's voice cut through from the other side. "I treated her injuries." Doc walked forward slow. His gravel voice carried clear. 3 broken ribs, dislocated shoulder, strangulation marks on her throat, defensive cuts on both arms, and malnutrition consistent with deliberate starvation over a period of weeks. He stopped in front of Harrison and looked up at him. "Bandits don't starve their victims, Mr. Blackwell. Husbands do." Harrison's mask cracked wider. His lip twitched. The thin man with spectacles stepped forward quickly. "Doctor, I'd advise you to be very careful with your accusations. Mr. Blackwell has a court order signed by a federal judge. You could be liable for slander." "I've seen your court order," Sheriff Wade said, stepping off the boardwalk. He positioned himself between Harrison and Grace, natural, without making it obvious. "I've also seen a federal telegram stating that your client is under investigation for fraud, embezzlement, and suspected murder." The street went dead quiet. Harrison's head turned toward Wade slowly. The concerned husband was gone. What looked out of those eyes now was something stripped clean, something that had been there all along underneath the suit and the smile and the tears. "Murder." Harrison's voice was controlled, too controlled. "That is a baseless, politically motivated investigation. I have not been charged with anything." "Not yet," Wade said. "But a federal representative is on his way to Ridgeway right now. Should be here Monday. I reckon he'll have some interesting things to discuss with you." "This is outrageous," the lawyer said. "We have every legal right to—" "You have the right to wait," Wade interrupted. "Until the federal inquiry is resolved, I'm exercising my authority as local law enforcement to delay execution of any civil court order that might compromise an active federal investigation." Harrison stood very still. His jaw worked. His hands, those clean, manicured, well-kept hands, curled into fists at his sides. And for 1 second, just one, the real Harrison Blackwell looked out at the world from behind the mask. And everyone on that street saw him. Cole saw Helen Campbell's hand go to her mouth, saw old Pete Dawson take a step back, saw the young man with the bowler hat look at Harrison and then look away fast, like a man who just realized he was standing next to a rattlesnake. Grace did not look away. She looked straight at Harrison, and Harrison looked at her. And what passed between them was 2 years of closed doors and drawn curtains and silence and pain. All of it right there on the surface now, right there in the open where the whole town could see it. "You can't hide here," Harrison said. His voice was different now, low, controlled, the pleasant conversational tone he used behind closed doors. "I will always find you, Grace. I will spend every dollar I have. I will—" You'll what? Grace stepped past Wade, past Cole, until she was 6 feet from the man who had beaten her and starved her and left her for dead. Hit me again. Break my ribs again. Choke me until I pass out and wake me up and do it again. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. You want to know why I'm not afraid of you anymore, Harrison? Because I crawled for 2 days through the dirt with 3 broken ribs and a dislocated shoulder, and I survived. You did your worst and I survived it, and I crawled to a place where a 7-year-old girl handed me a stuffed rabbit and told me I was going to be okay. She paused. You have money, you have lawyers, you have judges, but you don't have what I have. I have people who stood up for me when they didn't have to, and that's something you can't buy, and it's something you can't beat out of me, and it's something you will never ever understand. Harrison's face had gone white, not with shame, with fury, the kind of fury that lives in a man who has controlled everything his entire life and is watching that control slip through his fingers in front of witnesses. He took a step toward her. 3 things happened at once. Cole moved, not fast, deliberate. He stepped between Grace and Harrison and stood there, and he did not raise the rifle, did not clench his fists, just stood there like a wall that had been built for exactly this moment. Wade's hand went to his gun, easy, professional, his thumb on the hammer, and Frank Campbell walked off the boardwalk and stood beside Cole, did not say a word, just stood there, big, solid, arms at his sides, then Pete Dawson, then the bartender. Then Reverend Oakes, who had never stood in front of anything more threatening than a poorly attended sermon in his entire life, walked into the street and stood with them. Harrison looked at the men in front of him, looked at the crowd on the boardwalks, looked at his lawyer who was already backing toward the horses, looked at his hired men who were doing the same math Harrison was doing and coming up with the same answer. "This isn't over," Harrison said. Cole looked at him. "It's been over since she crawled out of that creek bed. You just don't know it yet." Harrison's mouth opened, closed. His eyes went to Grace one more time, and what lived in those eyes was hatred so pure and so deep that it had no bottom. Then the lawyer took his arm. "Mr. Blackwell, we should go. We'll handle this through proper legal channels." Harrison shook him off, but he stepped back. Because he was in the end what Grace had always known. He was a man who only hit people who could not hit back, a man who only fought battles he had already won. And this battle with a sheriff and a doctor and a town standing in his way was not one he had won. He turned, walked to his horse, mounted up. His hired men followed, but at the edge of town he stopped, turned in the saddle. "Monday," he said. "When your marshal arrives, I'll be here with my attorneys, with my court order, with every legal right the law affords a husband, and we'll see who's still standing." He rode east. The street stayed frozen for a long time after the hoofbeats faded. Then Grace's knees gave out. Cole caught her. His arms went around her and he held her upright, and she gripped his shirt with both fists and pressed her forehead against his chest, and she shook, not crying, something deeper than crying, something that had been locked inside her body for 2 years and was finally breaking loose. "I've got you," Cole said. "Right here. I've got you." She pulled back, looked at his face. Her eyes were wild and wet and fierce. "He's coming back Monday." "I know. The marshal might not make it in time." "I know that too." Grace's hands were still tangled in his shirt. "What if the law doesn't work? What if his money wins? What if his court order—" "Then we fight," Cole said. "Every way there is to fight. But Grace—" He put his hand on the side of her face, careful, tender. "I watched you stand in that street and look that man in the eye and tell him the truth in front of this whole town. And I watched him flinch. He flinched, Grace, not you, him." Her breath caught. "That man has been making you small for 2 years, and today you stood 10 feet tall and he couldn't handle it. That's all you need to know about who's going to win this." Grace closed her eyes, leaned her cheek into his hand, just for a moment, just long enough. Then she straightened, wiped her face, stepped back. "We need to prepare. I need to finish writing my statement, every date, every incident, every name, and I need to write a letter to the federal prosecutor directly. Not through the marshal, directly. She looked at Cole. If Harrison thinks he's going to come back Monday with lawyers and make this go away, he's going to find out that I've been building a case while he's been building a tantrum. Cole stared at her. Something shifted in his chest. Not the crack from before. This was something else. Something that filled the crack instead of widening it. "You're something Grace Calloway. I'm a school teacher from St. Louis who's very tired of being underestimated." The weekend passed in a blur of preparation. Grace wrote, page after page after page, every detail, every date, every witness, every piece of evidence she could remember. Dr. Patterson provided his full medical report. Wade Carson sent multiple wires to Cheyenne pushing for federal intervention. And Cole watched Grace transform from the broken woman he had found in the creek bed into something else entirely. A force of nature. A fighter. Someone who had decided she was done running and done hiding and done being afraid. On Sunday evening, the night before Harrison was due to return, Cole found Grace on the porch. She was staring at the papers in her lap. 14 pages of careful handwriting. The full accounting of what Harrison Blackwell had done to her. "It's good work," Cole said, sitting down in his chair. "It's the truth. Whether it's good enough remains to be seen." "It'll be enough." Grace looked at him. "You can't know that." "No, but I can believe it." They sat in silence for a while. Then Grace spoke. "Cole, if it goes wrong tomorrow, if they take me, I need you to promise something." "No." "Cole, please, just listen. If the law says I have to go back with him, if there's no other choice, I need you to let me go. I need you to think of Emma. She needs her father. She can't lose you too." Cole turned to look at her. "I'm not making that promise." "Why not?" "Because it assumes he wins, and he doesn't get to win." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "You're going to get yourself killed." "Maybe. But I'll die standing for something that matters, and Emma will remember that." Before Grace could respond, they heard footsteps on the porch. Wade Carson appeared out of the darkness. His face was grim. "I got news." Cole stood. "What kind of news?" "The kind that changes everything." Wade pulled a telegram from his pocket, handed it to Cole. Cole read it by lamplight, read it twice, then looked up at Wade with something close to wonder. "He lied." "Who lied?" Grace asked. "I did," Wade said. He did not look apologetic. "Told you the marshal was delayed. Landslide on the tracks. 2 more days minimum." But he's been in Ridgeway since Thursday night, staying at a ranch outside town. Waiting. I wanted Blackwell to think he had time, wanted him to walk in confident, thinking he was facing just a small-town sheriff with no backup. Cole stared at his friend. "You sneaky old fox." "I prefer strategically deceptive." Wade almost smiled. "Point is, when Blackwell comes back tomorrow expecting to steamroll us, he's going to find out the United States government has been here all along, and they've got questions." Grace stood up. "What kind of questions?" "The kind that come with a federal warrant for arrest." The words hung in the air. "Arrest?" Grace's voice was barely a whisper. Wade nodded. "The federal prosecutor in Missouri came through. They've been building a case against Blackwell for months. Fraud, embezzlement, and the death of Ruth Adler, that domestic servant who fell down the stairs. They found a witness, someone who heard her screaming before the fall, someone who saw Blackwell at the top of the stairs." He paused. "And your offer to testify about the domestic violence, about the pattern of abuse, about everything he did to you. That was the last piece they needed, because it establishes a history, a pattern, a man who hurts women and thinks he can get away with it because he has money." Grace sat down hard. Her hand went to her mouth. "He's going to be arrested tomorrow." "If everything goes according to plan, yes, ma'am." Cole felt something unknot in his chest, something he had been carrying since the moment he found Grace in that creek bed. The weight of knowing that no matter what he did, no matter how hard he fought, the law might not be on their side. But now it was. "What do you need from us?" Cole asked. "Just be there. Let Blackwell make his play. Let him show his papers and make his demands, and then let Deputy U.S. Marshal Daniel Cross introduce himself." Wade tipped his hat. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." After Wade left, Cole and Grace sat on the porch in stunned silence. "It's really over," Grace said finally. "Isn't it?" "Not until he's in chains. But yes, I think it is." Grace started to laugh. It came out shaky at first, then stronger. Then she was laughing and crying at the same time, and Cole pulled her into his arms and held her while she shook apart and put herself back together. "I can't believe it," she said into his shirt. "I can't believe it's really going to end." "Believe it." She pulled back, looked up at him. "What happens after tomorrow? After he's gone?" Cole brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Whatever you want to happen. I want to stay here, in Ridgeway, keep teaching, keep living in that little room above the schoolhouse that Reverend Oakes offered me." She paused. "And I want to keep coming to this porch every evening, keep sitting in this chair, keep being with me. Yes, if you'll have me." Cole kissed her, long and slow and full of everything he had been afraid to say. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "I'll have you, Grace Calloway, for as long as you'll let me." Monday morning came with the sound of horses on the road. Cole was already dressed, already standing on the porch with his rifle. Not because he thought he would need it, but because a man did not go unarmed to a showdown, even if the showdown was already won. Grace came out behind him, wearing the dress Nora had made for her. Simple, practical, the dress of a school teacher, not a victim. "Ready?" Cole asked. "As I'll ever be." They rode into town together. The street was already full, more people than had been there Friday. Word had spread. Everyone knew this was the day it would all be decided. Sheriff Wade was on the boardwalk, and beside him a man Cole had never seen before. 50-something, lean, weathered face, silver star pinned to his coat. Not a sheriff's star, a U.S. Marshal's star. Deputy Marshal Daniel Cross. Wade caught Cole's eye, gave the smallest nod. Everything was in place. At exactly 8 o'clock, just like he had promised, Harrison Blackwell rode into town. This time he brought more than 5 men. He brought 7. The lawyer, the hired guns, and 2 more men in suits who had the look of professional witnesses, men who would say whatever they were paid to say. Harrison dismounted, straightened his coat, walked toward the sheriff's office like a man who owned the street, like a man who owned everything. "Sheriff Carson," he said. His voice was all business now. No more concerned husband act. "I trust you've had the weekend to reconsider your position. I have here a valid court order from the 8th Circuit. I have medical documentation, I have witness statements, and I have run out of patience." Wade stepped forward. "Mr. Blackwell, I understand you have your papers in order. But before we proceed, there's someone I'd like you to meet." He gestured to the man beside him. "This is Deputy U.S. Marshal Daniel Cross out of Cheyenne." Harrison's eyes flicked to the marshal, flicked to the star, and for just a moment, just the briefest second, something like fear crossed his face. Then it was gone, replaced by calculated calm. "Marshal, I wasn't aware federal law enforcement had an interest in a domestic matter." "Neither was I," the marshal said. His voice was gravelly, hard. "Until I received a telegram from the federal prosecutor's office in Missouri. Seems they've been looking for you, Mr. Blackwell." He pulled a folded document from his coat. "Harrison Blackwell, I'm carrying a federal warrant for your arrest on charges of fraud, embezzlement, and suspicion of murder in the death of Ruth Adler." The street erupted, people talking, gasping. Harrison's lawyer grabbed for the warrant. "Read it." His face went through several colors, none of them healthy. "This is... Marshal, there must be some mistake. Mr. Blackwell is a respected businessman. These charges are detailed in the warrant," the marshal interrupted. "You're welcome to read the whole thing, but the short version is your client is under arrest, and this federal warrant supersedes any civil court order he might be carrying. Harrison stood very still. Cole watched it happen. The same thing he had seen in the street on Friday, but more complete now, more final. The authority drained out of Harrison Blackwell like water from a broken barrel. The confidence peeled away. The mask crumbled. And what was left was just a man in an expensive suit who had finally run out of people to buy, and laws to bend, and ways to escape the consequences of what he had done. He looked at Grace, and Grace looked back. "You said this wasn't over," Grace said. Her voice was quiet, steady, almost kind in the way that real strength sometimes sounds like kindness. "You were right. It isn't over. It's just beginning. And this time I'm not the one on the ground." Harrison's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "Mr. Blackwell," the marshal said, "you can come with me quietly, or you can make this difficult. Either way, you're coming with me." Harrison looked at his lawyer. The lawyer looked at the ground. "My men," Harrison said. His voice was hollow. "Your men can ride home," the marshal said, "or they can join you. Their choice." Harrison straightened his coat. Even now, even in this moment, the performance held. He smoothed his hair, lifted his chin, looked around the street as if he were leaving a party that had simply run too late. Then he walked toward where the marshal's horse was tied. But as he passed Grace, he stopped, leaned close. Cole moved. The marshal's hand went to his gun. Harrison whispered something, too low for anyone else to hear. Only Grace. Grace did not flinch, did not step back, did not blink. She leaned in, whispered back. 2 words. Cole could not hear them. Nobody could. But he saw Harrison's face when they landed, saw the man flinch like he had been struck, saw something behind his eyes break. Whatever Grace said hit harder than any fist ever could. Harrison walked to the marshal's horse. His hands were bound. He was mounted. A rope connected him to the marshal's saddle. He did not look back. Not once. 7 horses rode east, getting smaller, getting quieter. Then they were gone. The street stayed silent for a long moment. Then it erupted. People cheering, talking, crying, coming forward to congratulate Grace, to shake Cole's hand, to tell them both how brave they were. But Cole barely heard it. He was watching Grace. She stood in the middle of the street, hands at her sides, face tilted toward the sun, eyes closed, just breathing, in and out, free. Cole walked to her, put his hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" She opened her eyes. They were wet, but she was smiling. "I'm more than okay." "What did you say to him when he whispered?" Grace looked at Cole. Then she smiled, really smiled, the kind of smile that reached her eyes and changed her whole face. "I said, 'You're nothing.'" That evening, after the town had finally dispersed and the excitement had died down, Cole and Grace sat on the porch. Emma was inside playing with Sargent and the kittens. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. "It's really over," Grace said. "It is. What do I do now?" Cole reached over and took her hand. "Whatever you want. Teach. Read. Sit on this porch. Live your life." Grace laced her fingers through his. "I want to stay. Here. In Ridgeway. Is that crazy?" "No crazier than anything else we've done." She laughed. "True enough." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Grace spoke again. "There will be a trial. In March. I'll have to go to St. Louis. Testify against him." "I know. Will you come with me?" Cole turned to look at her. "Did you really just ask me that?" "Of course I'm coming with you. You think I'd let you face that alone?" "I just wanted to hear you say it." The weeks that followed were the strangest Grace had ever known. She went back to teaching, back to her little room above the schoolhouse, back to normal life. Except it was not normal. It was better. She did not flinch at sudden noises anymore, did not check over her shoulder when she walked, did not have nightmares every night. She was healing, and Cole was there, every day, every evening on that porch, sometimes talking, sometimes not, just being together. In August, on a Sunday afternoon, Cole came to the schoolhouse. Grace was preparing lessons for the next week. She looked up when she heard his boots on the stairs. "Cole, what are you doing here?" He stood in the doorway, hat in his hands, looking nervous in a way she had never seen him look before. "I got a question to ask you." Grace set down her papers. "All right." Cole walked into the room, stood in front of her desk, looked at her with those steady gray eyes. "I know the timing's not perfect. I know you've been through hell and back. I know you probably need more time to figure out who you are now that you're free. But Grace, I also know that I don't want to spend another day wondering if you're going to be in that chair on my porch tomorrow night." He paused. "Marry me." Grace's breath caught. "Cole, I know what you're going to say. It's too fast, too soon. You need time. And if that's what you need, I'll wait. I'll wait as long as it takes. But I'm asking anyway, because I love you, and because I want you to know that when you're ready, I'm here." Grace stood up, walked around the desk, stood in front of him. "Yes." Cole blinked. "Yes. Yes, I'll marry you, Cole Thornton, because I love you too. And because I don't want to spend another day wondering if I'm going to be in that chair tomorrow night either." Cole's face broke into a grin. The first real unguarded, completely happy grin Grace had ever seen on him. He picked her up and spun her around, right there in the schoolhouse. And when he set her down, he kissed her, deep and long and full of promise. The wedding was set for late August, in the schoolhouse, because that was where Grace had found herself again, where she had stood in front of children and remembered who she was. The whole town came, every single person, even Helen Campbell, who cried harder than anyone and never explained why. Emma was the flower girl. She carried Ranger instead of flowers. Nobody corrected her. Reverend Oakes performed the ceremony. His voice shook slightly when he spoke, not from nervousness, from joy. "Do you, Cole Thornton, take this woman to be your wife?" Cole's voice cracked. He did not care. "I do." "And do you, Grace Elizabeth Calloway, take this man to be your husband?" Grace looked at Cole, then at Emma in the front row, then back at Cole. "I do. I choose this, freely. For the first time in my life I am choosing." Cole kissed her. Emma cheered. Sergeant the cat knocked over a vase of wildflowers. The whole church erupted in applause. After the ceremony, after the food and the dancing and the toasts, after the town had slowly drifted home and the lamps had dimmed, Cole and Grace sat on the porch. Emma was asleep inside. Ranger tucked under her chin. Grace leaned her head on Cole's shoulder. "Tell me about Sarah." Cole was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke. About her laugh, louder than his and twice as frequent. About the way she sang off key and did not care. About the morning Emma was born, and Sarah looked at him and said, "Well, Cole, I reckon we're stuck with her now." About the last night when the fever was bad, and Sarah grabbed his hand and said, "Don't you dare let that girl grow up thinking the world is mean." "I told her I wouldn't," Cole said. "I told her I'd show Emma the world is good." He paused. "I think I'm doing that. With you here." Grace kissed his jaw. "She would have loved this." "Yeah, she would have loved you." They sat in silence for a while. Then Grace spoke. "I got a letter today, from the prosecutor's office in Missouri." Cole tensed. "And trial is set for March. I have to be there to testify." "We'll go, together." "I know. I needed to tell you. It'll be all right. You'll tell the truth. The jury will see what kind of man he is. And it'll be over. Really over." Grace nodded. "I hope you're right." November came cold and clear. The days were shorter now, the nights longer. But the house was warm. The porch was still used every evening until it got too cold. And then they moved inside to the fire. One evening in late November, Emma was doing her letters at the kitchen table. Grace was helping her. Cole was mending a saddle. Emma looked up. "Mama, how do you spell November?" The kitchen went still. Cole and Grace locked eyes. Both of them had heard it. Both understood the weight of that single word. Mama. Grace's arms tightened around Emma. She looked at Cole. His eyes were bright. "November," Grace said. Her voice only shook a little. Emma nodded, went back to her writing, like she had not just changed everything with one word. After Emma went to bed, Cole found Grace on the porch. She was wrapped in a blanket against the cold, staring out at the dark. "You okay?" he asked. "She called me Mama." "I know. I didn't ask her to. I never tried to replace Sarah. I would never." Cole sat down beside her, pulled her close. "I know that. Emma knows that. She's not replacing Sarah. She's just making room for both of you." Grace pressed her face into his shoulder. "I'm scared, Cole. Scared I'll mess this up. Scared I won't be good enough. Scared." "You're already good enough. More than good enough. You know how I know. How? Because Emma chose you, all on her own. We didn't push her, didn't tell her to. She just decided you were her mama, and that girl has more sense than both of us put together." Grace laughed through her tears. "That's true." They sat there in the cold until the stars came out, until the coyotes started calling, until it was time to go inside where it was warm. And as Cole held the door for Grace as he watched her walk into the house where Emma slept and the fire burned and the coffee would be waiting in the morning, he thought about the promise he had made to Sarah. Show her the world is good. He had done that, with Grace's help. Together they had shown Emma that broken things could heal, that justice could win, that love was possible even after loss. And tomorrow he would wake up and do it again, and the day after that, and every day for the rest of his life. Because that was what a man did. He made promises, and he kept them, no matter what. March came faster than any of them expected. The letter arrived on a cold morning. Grace read it at the kitchen table while Cole watched. 3 weeks, she said. Trial starts in 3 weeks. We'll leave in 2. Give us time to get there. Get settled. Grace folded the letter carefully. I'm ready. I think. I hope. Cole reached across the table, took her hand. You're ready. You've been ready since the day you crawled out of that creek bed and decided you'd rather die free than live owned. Emma climbed into Grace's lap. She had been listening. Are you going on a trip, Mama? Grace's arms tightened around the girl. Yes, sweetheart. Papa and I have to go to St. Louis for a little while, for the trial. Will you come back? I will always come back. I promise you that, Emma Thornton, I will always come back. Promise. Promise. Emma nodded, satisfied, wriggled down to go find Sargent. Cole and Grace sat in the quiet kitchen. Outside Wyoming stretched to the horizon, open, wide, indifferent to the small, fierce lives being lived in this house. Grace had been beaten, left to die, had crawled through mud with broken ribs, had been found by a man and a girl and a one-eared rabbit, had stood in a church and told the truth, had stood in a street and faced her demon, had chosen love, not the flowers and poetry kind, the kind that came with a chair on a porch and a door she could lock and a man who knocked before entering his own house. She had chosen freely, completely, and in that choosing she had found what she thought was lost forever. Home. Cole stood, walked to the window, looked out at his land, his life, his family. A man makes 2 kinds of promises, the ones he speaks out loud and the ones he carries in his chest. He had made Sarah a promise, to show Emma the world was good. He had kept it, and now he was making a new promise, to Grace, to Emma, to himself, to stand for what mattered, to protect what was his, to keep his word, because a man's word was his bond, and Cole Thornton was a man of his word.